Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode discourses on personality, competency, personality, competency, personality, competency. Welcome back to another episode on personality, competency. By now, we are trying to understand the vagaries of truth, the vagaries of factfulness. We're trying to save ourselves from illusions. We're trying to save ourselves from an uncalibrated understanding or measurement about person that's good enough to set a large table for discussion. And many, many people are required to dine together to make the best out of this party. Many, many people. The more, the better. The more you'll bite the stuff, the more you'll react. And those reactions are the valuable inputs to our understanding about personality. Somehow, it is a subject which cannot be understood definitionally. It is not a subject that one can understand through definitions. There are no statistics such as gravity is equal to 9.81 meter per second square. There are no stats and no logic like density is measured as grams per cc. We all, if at all, we all make it by ourselves. We define the terms and use it and forget that definition. We define the terms and use it, forget that definition. We create a standard number against something, we forget that number. We create a substandard number and use it separately. When my friend is there, I use it as 8. When somebody else's case is involved, I use it as 6. Go on making a chaos if you wish to. But here, we are trying to get introduced to that chaos very humbly, very sincerely, before we decide to come out of it and understand ourselves. Understand I and understand A and B much more vigorously, much more intently, much more honestly, much more dedicatedly. That is to create a larger, bigger, intense, denser understanding. That is to be prolific. That is to be prolific. Another means and measure of branded communication. Denser, bigger, larger, more intense, more intent. That is to be prolific. Another experience of branded communication. If you look at branding your communication as one way of trying to create a USP, unique selling proposition about yourself, not everything needs to be sold. Please. I'm the last person to contend that everything needs to be sold. Selling is one approach to life. There are other approaches. We'll talk about it at appropriate time. And you will probably by now empathize with me why I so regularly say the word appropriate time, because concepts are many, situations are many. So we are trying to take a view of others. And for that, I take a single important measure. I try and look at him. I try and hear him. Visual optical will give me about 75% data, and audio will collaborate with that data or corroborate that data by participating to the extent 15%. And remaining 10, maybe it's not available because that relates to the smell and the tongue and the feel. So these three are not available easily. First two are available majorly. Together they contribute roughly 90%. Audio is very forgettable. Visual, less forgettable. But visual, very challenging. Visual, very challenging because light travels at 10 raised to something something into 10 raised to 9 meter per second. That's the speed of light. So we are chasing light, isn't it? If you're an honest, optically sensitive person, you will realize that you are chasing something. Even if it stays apparently static, there is a large dynamic content. When you see a picture on the wall, it is selective illumination by the light falling on it. By itself, it cannot represent visually. The light falls on it, a typical selective light falls on it, and we are able to differentiate the colors. The science of coloration. It's a very complex phenomenon. So that light is very active in creating a perception, creating a view. And we are looking at personality and ever so dynamic, ever so violent, ever so changing, ever so misleading, ever so dynamic, ever so changing, so as to say, ever so misleading. And we are trying to grapple with that kind of a body, that kind of a science, that kind of an existence. We're trying to grapple with that and hope all that I do in a split second. In split second, I understand the person. In split second, I have a vocab. I have number of expressions in my repertoire so as to allocate one to him. One to him. Now, why we are on the page of optical view of the person, let me bring to you a simple geometry, remind you of the simple geometry. In geometry, we have three basic views. So for a second, we will compromise the person A as a body. We'll take a compromised view of the person A as a body. If it is a body, it could create three views. One is a front view. I'm in ideal position for that. But when I am in a front view, I cannot take the top view. And there's a side view. From the side, what appears is a bit of my nose coming out, my ears, and my shoulder. From the top, a bit of my shoulder, and in the center is my head, but in the front comes my nose, my eyes, my expressions, my wrinkles on the face, the chin, and the light changes in the lip structure, lip movements, eyes, eyebrows. So front view is good enough compared to top view and the side view. But side view has a different reference. Top view has a different reference, and front view has a different reference. And with the reference, things can change. A man looking good on the screen may not actually be good looking. The man actually playing a role of a certain character may not be actually that character, so on and so forth. So referencing comes. So we'll realize the value of reference at a slightly later stage. Discussion hasn't evolved to that point where I can introduce this concept or this factor. I cannot accommodate this factor as of now. So these are the three views, and each of these views, suppose now we again make a compromise of the body into a cube. Make a compromise of the body into a cube. So cube, the top view is going to be, let's say, 1 by 1 cube. The cube, the top view is going to look 1 by 1, side view is going to look 1 by 1, front view is going to look 1 by 1. So now the disadvantage is gone. But cube is a very important leading character, leading geometry. Now, if you turn the cube in such a way that you see a center line, one of the edges at the center of the picture, one of the edges in the center of the picture, then you see two faces, although slanted in the view. They offer a slant view of two faces. Or let us say two faces are the part of his existence. So I have a slanted view of that. Now can you hold this cube in a position that we studied as isometric position? We studied as isometric position. That means you take one tip, keep it at the center, and let all the three edges fly at 120 degrees with respect to each other. They're flying out of that point, center point, at 120 degrees because 360 degrees makes the circle 120, 120, 120. Now a full circle, and my optic is going to look full circle. In that, now I'm able to see face 1, face 2, and maybe face 7. If you that number has to come, probably some creative supply. The supply of the creatives will help you stand in good stead as far as understanding that third phase. So phase number 1, 2, the third phase we yet to title it. It'll come soon. It'll appear on the screen. So these three faces we are able to see. That means simultaneously I'll have three slant views of the person. Now which one to take? You want to take one flat view with 100% clarity without reference, or we take now three views with all the three are slant, but the numbers are many. Numbers are many. And do you know, most of us, even if they are given all the pieces in the drawing master, many of us will not be able to make an isometric view of even a cube, even if you spend half an hour. It'll require a technique. is not going to come just like that. It's not walking by virtue of being human. It's not creating a gesture by virtue of being human. You don't learn isometric view by virtue of being human. It requires a very specific thing. Now, if that cannot happen so easily on a drawing board, what most is possible in real life situations? Can we ever take an isometric view of a person? Would you know where to stand, where to take a picture, how long to hold that picture, how to correct yourself that all the three edges are flying at 120 degrees, how to ensure that. And even if you have an isometric view, you will require another isometric view to cover all the six faces, because cube has six faces. Although there are six in numbers, human being practically has many more faces. The more complex the human being, the more competent he is, the more number of faces he will have. Haven't you heard of pilots who want to play chess while the plane is on autopilot? Once you take off and before you land, what else you do at 35,000 feet? New York to London, Concorde takes about 4.5 hours. No more, it's out of service. Other planes will take 8 hours, 6 hours. What do? The larger the human being, the more competent the human being, the more number of faces he has. So let's start with simple people. Let's start with simple people to enable a better understanding about personality and competency. Personality and competency. Thank you very much. See you again next time.